Welcome to the Essential Skills for Humaning podcast, where we explore the fundamental abilities and insights that make us better humans. Here's your host, Christina Eanes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final episode of Essential Skills for Humaning for 2025. I'm your host, Christina Eanes. And before we dive into today's reflection, I just want to take a moment to appreciate you. Whether you've listened for years or you found us in the middle of a random commute one Tuesday afternoon, your commitment to personal and professional growth is the reason this podcast exists. Each week, I get to sit down with experts, leaders, and everyday humans who are doing extraordinary work. And you're right there learning with us, practicing these skills in your teams, your families, and your own self-development journey. Today's episode is something I look forward to all year. Our deep, thoughtful end-of-year reflection. Together, let's revisit the themes that shaped our learning in 2025. The insights from our guests, common threads that kept showing up. Whether we're talking about mindset, collaboration, abundance, communication, although I do have to say mindset is my favorite, or just, the everyday art of humaning. And of course, we'll get to some practical strategies just like we do with every episode you can take into 2026. So grab a notebook or open the Notes app and settle in. This is your time. Let's start by looking back what 2025 on the podcast taught us about humaning well. I like to think about 2025 for this podcast being the year of mindset, noticing, naming, and shifting our internal narratives. In several episodes, we talked about how our beliefs shape our behavior more than any external circumstance ever could. Several guests helped us see how people get trapped by narratives that quietly or not so quietly run in the background. Beliefs that say things such as, I'm not ready yet. This is just the way things are. I'm not creative. I'm not leadership material. I don't have enough time, money, energy, or fill in the blank. But what's great about learning together on this podcast is we learned new ways to shift our mindsets. Not a dramatic transformation, but a small cognitive pivot that can open up so many new pathways. These shifts don't make headlines, but they do change lives. And they changed a lot of the conversations we had this year. So here's our first summary strategy. We'll call it the 3N Mindset Reset. Try this weekly or really anytime you feel stuck. First, the first N, notice the belief. What is the story, because it is a story, that you're telling yourself? Write it down. It has more power in your head than on paper. And there's something very specific about a hand with a pen to paper neurologically that helps us reflect on things. Okay, the second N, name the belief. Is it a fear, a habit, a past experience, maybe a comparison? Could it be scarcity? Is it perfectionism? Name whatever that belief is. And then number 3, here's that small shift. Nudge the belief. Ask, what is a 1% shift I could make in this story? Because if we try to do too much, the brain's going to be like, no, I don't think so. So what is the 1% shift I could make in this story? I mean, maybe it shifts from I can't do this to, I can try a smaller version of this. Or I don't have time to, I can find 5 minutes. Let me just start. These micro shifts accumulate, and they're often the spark for bigger transformations. There's so many books resources that talk about the compound effect, and that's essentially what we're talking about. Okay. Another big learning topic for the podcast this year was communication that connects. And one of my favorite, yes and, as a way of being. One of our Eanes training lovelies, Lori Mulstein, brought playful energy and deep insight with her episode of the yes and mindset. And this wasn't just about improv. It was about transforming workplace and even home place interactions. Yes and helps us validate others' contributions, reduce defensiveness, encourage creativity, build psychological safety with others, navigate disagreement more constructively. And I could go on and on and on. But most importantly, it shifts us out of a reflexively shutting down of ideas, the dreaded yes, but, and into the possibility of co-creation. Now, hopefully you have started practicing this daily in as many conversations as possible, perhaps with a teammate, partner, child, or colleague. Respond at least once with yes and. You don't have to say the actual words, but here's some examples. Yeah, and here's another angle we could consider. Or, yes, and I appreciate how much thought you put into this. Yeah, and let's explore what it might look like if, insert the rest of your sentence here. Even if you disagree, you can still say something like, yes, and I'm seeing something a little differently. Let me share it. Try it in meetings, emails, and even performance conversations. You may be shocked at how quickly the tone shifts. For those of you that do try it on a regular basis, think about what benefits it's brought you. Okay, my other favorite things. This has also been the year of accountability, ownership, and personal power. Another theme we saw again and again was responsibility. Not in the blame yourself way, but in the step into your agency way. We explored what accountability looks like in oneself, in healthy teams, in a healthy workplace, how those of you who are leaders can model ownership without shaming, what to do when others refuse to take responsibility, how to build accountability systems that motivate instead of punish, how we self-sabotage when we avoid accountability. Yeah, I want to say that one again. How we self-sabotage. And we're absolutely not doing a service to ourselves at all when we avoid accountability. We're not stepping into our personal power. Okay, here's a strategy to try and reinforce this learning, the ownership check-in. Before reacting to a challenge or a conflict, ask yourself, what part of this situation can I influence? Or maybe, what expectations need to be clarified? What boundary needs to be set or reinforced? What conversation am I avoiding? That's a big one that could resolve this sooner. And finally, what's one action I can take today that moves this forward? Now, I say finally, but there's so many ways you can talk to yourself in stepping into your personal power and taking more accountability for what's going on in your life. Ownership isn't just about doing everything, it's about choosing intentional action. So let's move on to something a little more personal. This year, many episodes weren't just about being better in the workplace. They were about being better humans in our everyday lives. We talked about managing energy, setting boundaries, combating isolation, embracing curiosity, finding meaning at work, practicing self-compassion, navigating uncertainty. And we had a lot of great conversations this year. And something interesting happened. Listeners consistently wrote in saying some version of, I didn't realize how much these everyday human skills were affecting my work. Because here's the truth, folks. You can't separate human from professional. We can't separate emotion from strategic or decision making. It's a huge part of it. And you can't separate mindset from execution. And one of the biggest lessons this year, you can't pour from an empty cup, even though many of us try. So let's explore some personal practices we've revisited throughout the year. First, energy is more important than time. We talked about moving from time management to energy management, which is based in my book, The Secret to Super Productivity. Because time is fixed, but energy is renewable. This year, listeners experimented with noticing peak energy times, adjusting work to natural rhythms, taking micro breaks. It doesn't need to be huge to get you energy. My favorite, setting no meeting blocks so that you can focus or do what you need to do to get your energy back up. Practicing deep work, integrating movement into the day. Big one, identifying those energy vampires and coming up with plans if we can't avoid them in our lives. Simplifying decision fatigue, because that is huge. So here's a little something to do to deepen the learning from those episodes. For 1 week, track your energy every 90 minutes on a scale of 1 to 10, whatever that means to you, whatever 1 is to you, whatever 10 is to you. And then ask yourself, when was I most clear and focused? When was I drained or distracted? What types of tasks give me energy? What types drain me? What boundaries or planning adjustments would help? Then rebuild your schedule around your energy, not the other way around. I know, groundbreaking, isn't it? It's a simple concept, but we absolutely should take the time to focus on doing it. We will thank ourselves so much down the road. All right, we also talked a lot about the emotional side of humaning, recognizing what our triggers are, separating the reaction from our response, and building in a nice little buffer between those two. Taking a moment to pause and choose our response. We also talked about setting boundaries without guilt, saying no without over-explaining ourselves, stepping away before we escalate the situation, and acknowledging the emotions that we have without letting them run the show. So another strategy for us to think about, the pause, name, and choose reset. When we're emotionally activated, first, pause, take a breath. Name the emotion, such as, I'm feeling irritated or disappointed or overwhelmed. And then we choose our response, not the first impulse, but the most effective option. Naming the emotion engages that prefrontal cortex, allowing us to respond instead of react. From our lizard brain. Okay, let's talk about navigating isolation and rebuilding connection. Some of the things that we learned. Well, this year, many listeners shared feeling lonely or disconnected, even when they're in busy, collaborative work environments. We explored how to build belonging intentionally, such as joining peer groups, scheduling connection rituals, sharing more authentically with colleagues, not oversharing, but sharing authentically, practicing vulnerability in appropriate doses, and then reconnecting with curiosity with others. And giving ourselves permission to need people, because even the most extreme introverts among us we need people. So here's another strategy for you for our end of year reflection, the humaning connection ritual. Choose one connection ritual to do weekly. These could be such things such as a gratitude message to a colleague, lunch or coffee with someone you want to know better, a quick check-in with a mentor or someone that you admire, maybe a voice note to a friend, tiny acts of connection change our home life as well as workplace culture far more than big initiatives. Okay, so let's conclude this episode with, we'll call it reflecting forward. As we close out 2025, I'd love for you to pause and reflect deeply on your journey. So if you haven't already, grab a pen. Here are the questions. Let's start with mindset and beliefs. What belief held you back this year? What belief propelled you forward? What mindset shift are you most proud of? What belief needs to be retired before 2026? I'm going to go through the next a little bit faster, so feel free to pause. So let's look at the category of relationships and communication. Which relationships grew stronger this year for you? And why do you think that is? Which relationships need repair, clarity, or boundaries? What communication skill did you improve the most? I'm hoping yes and. Where do you practice or did you practice yes and in meaningful ways? All right, let's look at your personal growth. What surprised you most about yourself in 2025? What energized you? What drained you? What routines or habits supported your well-being? What needs to change? Okay, now on to visioning forward. Who do you want to be in 2026? What do you want to learn? What do you need to let go of? What is calling you forward? What's one bold step you'll take in January? To close out the year, I want to offer a simple suggestion for setting meaningful, sustainable intentions for 2026. I'm saying intentions and not goals because we want you to actually integrate everything that we've learned. Choose only 2 intentions to work on at a time. Any more, and you won't do it. Perhaps the first one is a personal intention. This is about your growth, your emotional health, energy, well-being, boundaries, self-awareness, identity, whatever is personal for you. So examples, I will protect my creative time. I will practice self-compassion when I make mistakes. I will build routines that energize me. Maybe then your second intention could be a relational one, something to do with others, how you show up with others, such as, I will listen fully before responding. I will practice yes and with my team. I'll build deeper connections at work. Choose intentions that feel energizing, not overwhelming. Otherwise, you won't do them. Okay, as we wrap up our final episode of 2025, I want to leave you with this. Humaning is hard. It's messy. It's beautiful. And you are doing better than you think. You showed up this year with curiosity, with courage, vulnerability, with a desire to grow. You leaned into difficult conversations, navigated uncertainty, and made choices, big and small, that shaped you. I am deeply grateful for this community. Together, we laughed, learned, reflected, and challenged ourselves. We didn't strive for perfection. We aimed for progress, alignment, abundance, and connection. In 2026, we'll continue exploring the essential skills for humaning. Communication, collaboration, mindset, creativity, resilience, influence, and everything in between. We'll bring on new guests, share new stories, and deepen our collective growth. I'll co-host with Lori a few times as well, one of the other Eanes training instructors. Thank you for being here. Thank you for investing in yourself. and thank you for letting us be a part of your journey. From my heart to yours, here's to rest, renewal, and stepping boldly into 2026. Happy end of 2025, my fellow humans. I can't wait to human with you in the new year.
Thank you for tuning in to the Essential Skills for Humaning podcast. We hope you've gained valuable insights to enhance your journey as a human being. Remember, practice makes progress. Keep honing those essential skills, and until next time, keep being the best version of yourself. For more resources, visit eanestraining.com.